Thompson's there, Billy in. A goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome back to the Andy Takes That Chance podcast Cult Heroes series. In this episode, we're delighted to be joined by a man who made 224 appearances for Huddersfield Town between 2009 and 2014, and a player whose name is at the tip of every Town fan's tongue when he asks them for their ultimate captain and team leader. And it's a big one. Welcome to the podcast to Peter Clarke. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Yourselves?
Good. We're all good. Let's start at the beginning then. So you signed with Everton. Were you a Blue as a kid? Was it the sort of dream move for you? And what was your path to becoming a pro footballer? What was it like?
Oh, playing for my Saturday, Sunday team. We had a decent team, to be fair. There were a few boys at different clubs, a couple at Liverpool, 2 or 3 at Preston. And then this given Sunday morning, afternoon, whatever it might have been, didn't realise until after. I think we ended up winning the league that day. So there was a bit of a social gathering afterwards. And I remember my dad saying to me in the pub that sponsored our kit, I don't know if that'd be allowed anymore nowadays. We were in the pub and he said, "Oh, there's a scout from Everton been at the game today. They want to know if you want to go across and, go on trial train with them." So I did. It was, like I say, towards the back end of the season, and I ended up there for a while, and I ended up staying. I don't know. They asked me to stay the following season. I don't know whether that was by default or what, but I ended up staying and was there for 10 years, thereabouts. So, but your other question, no, the family were all Reds. So
it was like the Jamie Carragher, Robbie Fowler kind of situation.
Yeah, I remember we went round to my nan's within a couple of days of this conversation being had. I explained the situation and she, "Well, you're not going, are you?" Like, okay. So ultimately I did, and the rest they say is history.
Grandma's a funny Peter. My grandma hid from me that she was a Leeds United fan until I was 31. So
Wow.
there you go, grandparents. Okay. And it was my uncle changed a ringtone to Marching On Together, and it rang when I was next to her. It's like, what's going on there? Yeah, I can understand. But as a 15, 16-year-old, then I believe you went into the England schoolboy system, Lillishall and everything. And this is where you met one of our very own podcasters, Mr. Phil Senior.
Yeah.
And Phil has sent me. I said to him, "Phil, can you jump on and do this with us?" And he said, "Oh, I can't make the time, etc. But I do have these questions or these memories for him, and I'm going to throw them at you. And I've got no idea what any of them mean. You can choose to ignore them if you want, or you can choose to go in. But a few stories about Phil would be good because it's usually the other way around. So he said, ask him about gegging in our end of season trip to America. Ask him about 2 foot in the bin in the common room. Ask him about the meetings that used to make us sit outside and only one could enter or something, and then ask him about what he threw all over us on the bus on the way back from school that time." So he's throwing you under the bus, so to speak, as Phil, straight away.
Yeah. I can't remember what I threw at them on the way home on the bus, so he'll have to enlighten me.
He's obviously still holding that against you, I think, by the sound.
I know, yeah. That must be deep-rooted. So Phil was a school year bit younger than me. Probably, I think we were born in the same calendar year, but he was a school year younger than me. And the FA's national school had been running for years and years and years, however long. So I think Sol Campbell was one of the first intake. And then when you were the first year, a junior, so year 10 in school, the year 11s, the seniors as such, you kind of have an initiation after about a week or so of being there. And you go into one of the bigger rooms. So you either slept in 3s or 4s in the rooms, had your own little space and all that sort of thing. So you go in and all 16 of the year above would be in there. And you would then go in and it was, how shall I describe it, like a tunnel of death. So there were some with pillows, which were okay. Some with boots in pillar slips, some with bars of soaps in pillar slips. And you had to go through this tunnel of death 2 or 3, 4 times, whatever it was. How shall I put it? I'm not sure getting a good hiding is perhaps the right way of putting it, but they were testing your character, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I suppose it was a little test of character. So, yeah, when we became the year 11s, the year 10s as such, they got what we had got the year before. I think the idea was that, you know, the housemaster and the house mistress were never to be aware of this. And for 14, 15 years, they had no idea. But some in Phil's year decided to squeal.
I reckon that's Phil, to be fair.
To be honest with you, I don't think it was. But yeah, there were a couple who went and told tales, so we got in lumber.
Oh dear. Definitely didn't knock any sense into him anyway, but
no, not at all. And the America trip. So at the end of your time at Lilleshall, there was usually a foreign trip, and you go and play a couple of games, see the world a little bit as well. So their trip was down to, I think it was Florida, Tampa, and we went and played the equivalent American team at the same age. But the age range had gone from being like educational years to, let's say, like a 90 birthday or a 91 birthday. So there were so most of that group were born in 82, but September to December. And there were some that were probably through the course of the 83s. So the powers that be asked for a couple of older 82s go and join the trip. So there was me and a lad that played at Middlesbrough as well, Stuart Parnaby. So we went and gate crashed their trip. So that's what he means by that.
That's what it means. Yeah. We'll move on from Phil, but he's a top lad, he's Phil. So he's
sound.
So you made your debut for Everton, which must have been a dream come true for, you know, a local boy from Liverpool to do that. And you had a few loans at Blackpool, Port Vale, Coventry before you signed for Blackpool, where you played with a few players with Huddersfield connections in them as well, or would have future connections. So Keith Southern, Simon Grayson, and Keegan Parker. I mean, Keegan Parker must have been a bit of a character back in the day.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I played a charity game day before yesterday at Blackpool. Keegan was there. Keith was there. Yeah, Keegan was a colourful character for the little period of time I shared the lift with him and a couple of others. He was miserable company, fall asleep, nightmare. But no, Keith was a decent player, knew where the goal was. Yeah, Keith I've known a long time, probably known Keith 30 years. Amazing lad, great player. brilliant at what he did and an even better human being.
He's definitely went through a lot as well. We've got a question from one of our Patreon guys, and he said, and it's from El Bubio, and he says Peter Clarke was obviously the epitome of a captain, but what captains early in his career did he learn from?
Wow, good question. Suppose my formative years, my years where you kind of noticed those things. There were leaders like Tony Adams and Paul Ince, players like that. And then when I was a little bit older, back at Everton, there was Dave Watson and experienced players that not necessarily. Well, I think probably they did all wear the captain's armband at some point in time, but leaders in their own way. There was Kevin Campbell, God rest his soul, Duncan Ferguson, Davy Weir, Richard Gough. So when I was a young player, I looked at those sorts and looked to learn from them.
You were the Blackpool Player of the Season, which alerted Southend, who signed you to play in the Championship, but unfortunately Southend came back down. You then had a playoff campaign, but maybe your best season, looking at that, might have been the last one at Southend. You got the Player of the Year again. You scored an equaliser against Chelsea in the FA Cup, although Southend just missed out, didn't they, on the playoffs. But already there, you're sort of making a mark on the game. 2 Player of the Season awards in quick succession, and you're certainly making your way through there. Just run us quickly through that, and then we'll move on to when you signed for Huddersfield.
Yeah, so I signed permanently at Blackpool from Everton. Was there a couple of seasons. I signed just short of a couple of seasons. But signed there, won the Player of the Year there, like you say, a couple of times. Moved on to Southend, and then been there a couple of years. They asked me to sign a contract extension. It was on reduced money. The time my wife was pregnant, and we didn't feel it was the right way forward. I spoke with the manager. I said, gave myself the situation. He was like, "Listen, I fully understand your situation. If you're fit, you're going to be in my team." And he said, it'll probably get revisited through the course of the season. And if you're doing the business, then likelihood is, I would hope that some sort of agreement will be able to be made. So, right, great, thank you very much. Took him at his word. The chairman then put me on the transfer list 2 days before the season started. And I spent the whole season on the transfer list. They never came back and renegotiated, and ultimately at the end of my time there, I signed for Town.
Yeah, this is where the good stuff starts now, Peter. So, exciting things seem to be happening at Huddersfield. I think as fans, we've been in the doldrums for quite a while. We'd had the previous owner, Ken Davey, I don't think he was a bad owner by any stretch of the imagination, but he ran Huddersfield at sort of with a thrifty manner, if you like. So signing players wasn't very common. I think we used to sign 2 a season for free in the summer, and that was pretty much it for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, Dean Hoyle comes in 2008, and then everything changes. We've got this young sort of dynamic owner who wants to take Huddersfield to the next level, and all of a sudden, from being just turning up almost like just trudging to the game and just watching it and maybe leaving earlier, getting an extra pint in before everybody's engaged, all of a sudden it's exciting. And Dean Hoyle comes in and he brings in Anthony Pilkington. We bring in Lee Clark as well as manager. He brings an exciting new style of football that we've not seen for ages. There's money being spent. Pilkington, Jordan Rose, Danny Drinkwater, Lee Peltier. How did the move to Huddersfield come about for you then? And I think there was interest, wasn't there? Was it from Charlton maybe at the time? But just tell us about how that came through. And I've got a nice picture as well from when you signed. And believe it or not, from the thing here. Look at that. And we've got look at that. Got you. That's an Ed Hardy jacket, is that? I remember I used to have one similar as well. They were all the rage back in like
They
2009.
were. They were.
But yeah, tell us
So,
about how it came about.
yeah, so we play. My daughter was born at the end of March, and we were playing Town. I think it was the first weekend in April. What do you call it? I asked the then manager at Southend. I said, "Can I drive back, take my wife home, so she with the family, take the baby up?" Yeah, that's fine, no problem. Meet us at such and such a place. That's where we're training, which I did, and it was great. And at the time, I had an agent or someone, an intermediary, I think they're called, he was speaking to potential clubs about the following season, where I may or may not go, and so on and so forth. And I asked the question, I would just mention anything at Huddersfield. This was the day before the game, no reply. And then we played, we won 1-0. Southend won 1-0. And I did all right. It was one of those games where everything seemed to fall. The balls come in the box and it was me on the end of it, heading it away or clearing it or blocking a shot or whatever.
Is that the one where Theo Robinson misses the chance where he rounds Alex Smithers? Was that the?
Yeah,
it was, wasn't it? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So I'd done all right, and then it was a case of one of those. The agent then replied, how did it go? I said, yeah, it was okay. It went well. Good win. Because we were still in touching distance of the playoffs at that time. And I said, anything at Huddersfield? Any interest from Huddersfield? No, don't think there's anything there. So I texted him back. Couple of expletives. I think they must be waiting for JT or Carragher. So then probably within the month before the end of April, I got a call off, might have been a bit longer actually, I got a call off Derek Vuvuzelas, who was Lee's first team coach, asking what I was doing, where I was going, etc. Lee, Terry McDermott had liked to meet you. So I agreed to meet Lee and Terry McDermott, and I met them at the back end of the season. And really enjoyed the company, really liked what I was hearing about where they wanted to take the club, what they wanted to do, how it was looking to move forward, etc. And then they said, we'd like you to come across to the ground and meet the owner and show you around there. Okay, which I did. Went across with me dad. The agent by this time had been kicked into touch because he couldn't lie straight in bed. So me and my dad went across, and again, meeting Dean, Nigel Clibbins. It was a really positive meeting, but I had said to Phil Parkinson, I'd given him my word that I would go and meet him. He was manager at Charlton at the time. Lee, Dean, Nigel, they wanted to negotiate there and then. And I was like, I've given Phil my word that I can't not meet him. I said, but unless he absolutely blows me away, I said, I want to play for Huddersfield. So off the back of it, went and met him, and then spoke to Lee and said, listen, I want to sign for you, which I then did. When I went back across to the Gal Farm, the John Smiths, and signed, and that was the beginning of my 5 years.
Yeah, it's funny how things turn out in football as well, because your first game for Huddersfield was away at Southend, and the first ever pedal for pounds as well. It's where Dean had gone down on his bike, and there's I think 100 Town fans went down at the same time, and Sean Jarvis went down, and there's a lot of excitement. There's a huge travelling contingent. Southend go 2-0 up in that game, don't they? And then Jordan Rhodes and Lee Novak come on and the game changes, and it's something's happening there. The start of the season's really exciting. Honestly, as a fan, it was so exciting. I remember beating Southampton at home, which was really good. You've got the Brighton 7-1 game as well, where you scored your first goals as well. And then we won at MK Dons for the first time ever as well. And we never win at MK Dons. Or at that point, we'd never won at MK Dons. And it just felt like, there's something happening here. There's something exciting and something happening. And Jordan Rhodes gets his fastest ever hat-trick or the fastest ever headed hat-trick, I should say, in the Football League against Exeter. Beating Wickham 6-0 on Sky. And some of the goals there, Gary Roberts and Pilkington, were just unbelievable. But did it feel like something exciting was happening for you guys as well, like it did for us back in the stands?
Yeah. You went into every game. Like, we had a group of lads that were brilliant, not dissimilar ages, all really positive, run through brick walls for each other, good company off the pitch with each other. And we enjoyed training, we enjoyed playing. And it was just a great environment to be in and a great time to be playing for Huddersfield and with the lads that were there at the time. It was fantastic.
Hey, Peter, sorry to jump in here. When you joined Town, Lee Clarke was obviously really inexperienced as a coach, but he's kind of surrounded himself with coaches with a lot more experience. Did they have a lot of a hands-on role when it came to training and setting up the team, or was it Lee Clarke on his own? Because later in his Town career, obviously, we changed the way we played a little bit, but I just wondered if when you first joined and Lee was inexperienced, did he lean on like Vuvuzelas and whatnot a bit more than what other managers do with their backroom staff?
So Lee was probably not inexperienced as a coach, but he was as a manager. But I think it was, from at the time, a young manager to surround himself with, the two guys, Derek, Terry, and Steve Black. He surrounded himself with great people with huge amounts of experience, knowledge, know-how, and between them, they all played their own little parts in the coaching, the training. Ultimately, the final say, I'm sure, always laid with the manager, and rightly so. But looking back, Lee surrounded himself with people that would challenge him, wouldn't just agree with everything he said. Or at least this is my perception. And for any leader, good leader, great leader, I think, you have to surround yourself with people who will challenge your thought process. And for me, Lee did that. And like you say, we played some great stuff at times and really excited. And, there were a number of games where we won really well.
Let's move to February 2010. You scored a goal which was voted by a lot of Town fans as the goal of the season, and I can play that. I've managed to upload that, and we can play that here for you, Peter.
No doubt much to Lee Clarke's annoyance, Huddersfield are fast becoming draw specialists, even though they raced into the lead against fellow playoff contenders Swindon. Quite how Peter Clarke squeezed in the 8th minute opener from that angle was a mystery, but there was no time to...
Talk us through this one then, because this was the subject of debate in a lot of forums and stuff, like because it doesn't start there either. I think they've cut out the first bit where you kind of head the ball and you go down the left wing and beat him a couple of times as well. It's unusual for a centre back. I mean, at Huddersfield, we're used to sort of your big strapping. They used to call them wardrobe centre backs, didn't they? Who just head and kick everything clear. So we weren't used to like a centre back going down the wing and beating someone and then whipping it into the far post. Did you mean it?
Yeah, it was. So I'd come up for the corner. It'd been part cleared. That ended up on the edge of the box, and like you say, it came and I controlled it, got it down, and then the ball had fallen to my left, so kind of went that way, and the man obviously came and pressed me. ended up against the touchline and the goal line and managed to wriggle free. And then as I'm coming in down the touchline, well, the goal line, I can see bodies in the box, and the keeper starts to move early. So he's gambling that I'm going to pick someone out for the cross, and he's obviously then open to come and intercept it. So I just held myself a second longer, and he took another step, and I thought I can do him on the inside there, which obviously nice it went in the far corner. Had it missed and gone in the side net, and I'd look like an absolute clown.
Honestly, to do that with your left foot though, which is your weaker foot, I think, isn't it? Your left foot, and inside as well, so it's curling out. It's some finish, isn't it, Killer? Just to sort of whip that into the far post from that angle.
It's amazing. And honestly, I think that first touch, Peter, you might have even been in the box for it. It was so close to being in the box, and then you've dribbled it all the way around the outside. It must have been the longest goal you've scored when it comes to your first touch and the amount of yards you ran before putting it in the back of the goal.
So.
There was a few debates, Peter, beforehand if you meant it or not. And I'll be honest, mate, a lot of people reckon you didn't. So it's nice to get that.
We can put that one to bed, can't we? We can put
How dare they?
I know, scandalous. I remember a goal you scored before you signed for Huddersfield. I think you scored from about 45 yards in one game, didn't you? Do you remember that one? Was it for Blackpool or Southend? I think it was literally about 45 yards out, and you absolutely smashed it from near the halfway line. It went in the top corner. That was probably your best goal, I would imagine, that you scored.
So there was that one. That was at Leighton Orient for Southend. And it'd come from the left back, and I'd stepped out, moved forward, and one of those, go on, hit it. And it took a little bit of a nick off someone's shoulder and ended up going right in the top corner, wrong foot of the keeper. Well, did the keeper with the trajectory of it. And then ultimately, going back now, probably 6 or 7 years ago, scored one not dissimilar at Crewe for Oldham, and I caught that one quite sweet. So I think that one, perhaps the Oldham one, just pips it.
I think that was going around on Twitter, wasn't it? 6 or 7 years ago. I think people were still like, oh, he's still playing, he's still doing it. I think that was that was a great moment.
I got sent the goal a day or so later. And I'm looking for the commentary. So I'm turning it up. And then as I hit it, we know the screaming.
Oh, I know exactly what's coming there, yeah.
So I've hit it, and, and I'm like, trying to get this phone off as quickly as I can. So in turn, I then sent it on to a few other people. Hey, did you see me goal the other day?
Listen to the crowd roar, yeah. Dear, I know exactly which meme you're on about. I've fallen for that once or twice myself, and it's never, especially when you're in front of your mum, it's never good. So I remember the teams. I think it's the team spirit that stood out from there. I mean, Pilkington and Roberts seemed sort of at the heart of most things, and they were. Everybody loved Pilks and Roberts, didn't they? Because they were so exciting down the flanks, and Robbie Williams at left back. And I remember the celebration away at Oldham that started. Robbie Williams scores with a free kick, and he was a superb free kick taker, was Robbie Williams. And they all run around with their hands up like this, doing the swan. So, do you remember the swan and how that came about?
Yeah. I do, and I'm not entirely sure how it did come about, but I do remember everyone running off it and looking unified, but a little bit silly as well. But like you say, the team spirit was brilliant. There was a nucleus of local lads or Yorkshire lads as well, and those that signed were made to feel more than welcome, and everyone integrated really well.
There was the car school, wasn't it? I remember that when they used to be on Twitter, Robertson, Gary Robertson, Pilkington, they always used to go about the car school over from Liverpool, didn't they? There was like Lee Peltier, Anthony Kay, and Pilks, Roberts. I imagine that was absolutely carnage in a morning coming over the M62 in that car. It'd be absolutely mental, I'd imagine, but lots of fun.
Yeah, so I remember, and I'm not going to name names, but there was, the four you've mentioned, myself, and we're in a car, and the weather was bad. So the 62 slowed right down. We knew there was back ways to go over the tops. So we decided to come off. We're going across the back ways, and the snow's drifted, and there's literally now no way through. And there was one of the ones that you mentioned, he was driving, and we're like, come on, we'll clear the snow, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll get through. So he got out the driver's seat, sat in the back of his car with his head in his hands, and didn't want to drive any longer. Can't do it. And he's like, his head in his hands. So in the end, one of the other lads drove. We turned around and went back, found a different way. But needless to say, the rest of that journey was interesting because the individual got absolutely battered.
My money's on Gary Roberts there. We'll move on a little bit towards the end of the season. I remember the end of the season, it was really strange because Town were in 6th, but going into the last game against Exeter, we could still technically get 2nd.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Literally all 16. I think the league had been won, but there was like 5 teams going for 2nd place. Unfortunately, Leeds, I think, got it in the end. They won against Bristol Rovers, didn't they? But I remember going 1-0 up really early at Exeter, and it was like, oh my, it's on here. Huddersfield doing the most amazing leapfrog of all time into 2nd, but unfortunately the results went elsewhere, didn't they? And I think that kind of maybe seeped into what went on there. But just we'll talk about that, but we'll talk about the playoffs as well, because we'd beaten Millwall at home in April 1-0. You'd scored, I think it was corner, wasn't it? And I think they'd headed it first and followed up the rebound, and it had gone through. I think it's David Ford, wasn't it? The Millwall keeper had gone through his legs.
Yeah, no, I headed it down between his legs.
That's it, yeah.
And then ran off in front of the fantastic media stand.
Do you remember in that game? Because I was in that fantastic media stand, and they gave out before that game Vuvuzelas, and everyone in that away stand had the Vuvuzelas, because it was the South Africa 2010 World Cup, and I think Sean Jarvis had the idea of giving out Vuvuzelas, and there was just this like horrible hum across the stadium. It was. What was that like to play? Because I mean, can you imagine Millwall fans coming up and going, "What's going on here?" Because they're obviously at the other end of the scale, aren't they? So that would, that would have been an extremely strange, brilliant result, but what a strange atmosphere.
Yeah, great result. I think it was a Friday night game on Sky. And I'm not a fan of the Vuvuzelas. They're not my cup of tea. Funnily enough, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was going to a match with my lad, and there's a kid further down in the distance, and he's got one of them like big long thing, and you can see him. He said to me, he's gone, "What's that?" And I explained, and I went, you don't want to hear him blowing there. Anyway, the kid starts blowing it. He went, "Oh my God, Dad, that's doing me head in." So off the back of it, the game against Millwall, great result. They were so annoying. Just this squeaky noise that I found irritating.
It's like a swarm of mosquitoes, wasn't it, around there? It's like it was special, shall we say? But I mean, we'll talk about the playoffs, because Millwall, it was difficult, wasn't it? The home game was 0-0, and it was one of those, every playoff game at Huddersfield, whatever year, it's always kind of tense at home. There's always like if you start the first match in a playoff is always quite tense. Nobody wants to give anything away, and it was 0-0. I think probably a fair result, probably fairly even that game from memory. Yeah. And then we went down to Millwall, and the atmosphere they created at Millwall was, I remember being in the away end, and we were in the upper tier, right at the back of the upper tier, and I just remember Millwall fans being incredibly mental. We had to go in a bubble that in a minibus, and they're all throwing stones at the minibus and what have you. And you got in, and then they were all jumping over the hoardings at this and sort of like going crazy at you. And it was a mad atmosphere. It must have been a completely insane atmosphere to play in, and I don't like that atmosphere, but it kind of worked for them.
Yeah. So I time was captain, and you go in before the game for the team sheet. Myself and Derek went in, and then I think it was Paul Robinson was their captain, I'm not sure who we went in with. I don't know whether it had been Kenny Jackett at the time. But yeah, listen, if the game ends after the 90 minutes, I'm going to try and get everyone over towards the tunnel. Like the Walsall and Chesterfield game the other day where Paul Cook gets his players over. He said, yeah, I'll try and get all the players over. You're thinking, right, okay. So we obviously went behind. We were losing. Lee Clarke had threw me up front. I ended up in the furthest corner, removed from the tunnel. So that was great fun. But even when we were warming up, the warm-up tended to be done out of the centre of the pitch. They were throwing coins, you name it, lighters, all kinds of stuff. For me, I was buzzing. I was in my element. I'd pick the lighter up like I was lighting a fag and, take the piss, take the money. Oh, thank you very much. Which probably irritated them. But yeah, it was a hostile environment, and we did have a team that was younger and probably some players who had not experienced that before. I remember the ball going out for a throw-in on the opposite side from where the dugouts were in the tunnel. And the individual who was going to take the throw-in, I didn't want to walk to the advertising hoardings to pick the ball up. Yeah. Which, you're in a situation you think, right. And they started really, really well. I don't think it was until the second half that they scored, but the second half they were like a steam train. Like I say, ended up front, ended up in the furthest corner removed from the tunnel, and the referee blows the whistle, and then you've got however many thousand Millwall fans on the pitch, which was great fun. I started to run, and I thought to myself, no, I need to start walking here, because if I get whipped up, I'm in a pickle. In the end, there was 2 or 3 Millwall fans that I was scrapping with to get off the pitch, and then security obviously came, and off I went. And to be fair, as I'm coming off, Steve Black, he was coming back on. Unbelievable fella. Someone you want to on the outside.
It won't mess with him. He was doorman and all sorts, wasn't he, in Newcastle?
He had, so obviously he worked with Johnny Wilkinson and the sports psychologist and what have you. But his upbringing in Newcastle in his early days, he was, doorman, like you say. But he was certainly someone you wanted on your side.
100%. So we'll put that Millwall one to one side. I think despite the disappointment of it wasn't really disappointing, because it felt like progress in a lot of ways that season. It felt like a young side had come a long way, and I think everyone was looking forward to the next season rather than being disappointed and dwelling on it. I think everyone was like, right, what's next? Which was great to set us up. And I think the disappointment of the playoffs aside, I think to win the Player of the Year as well was quite special for you as well. Lee Clarke had made you captain straight away as soon as you came in, and you'd led by example the whole way through and won Player of the Year. And I think that even though we didn't go up, it must have still been a brilliant occasion for you to do that.
Yeah, personally, it was great. I would have gladly handed the trophy back had it meant we'd been promoted. From a personal point of view, really pleasing. And like you say, I think there was an air of optimism and about the forthcoming season. And Lee, the staff recruited and got 1 or 2 more experienced lads in, and we ultimately missed out on automatic promotion that year to 2 sides. I think we ended up on a ridiculous amount of points, and I think 9 out of the previous 10 years that had sufficed to get a team up automatically. Ultimately, for us, it wasn't the case, but we finished about 14 or 15 points clear of third and ultimately fourth. Sorry, and ultimately then came to the playoffs and.
Yeah, well, there's some points during this season. I mean, Lee Clarke seemed to like I say, he altered his policy a little bit, and he moved away from the younger ones. I think the Millwall experience maybe changed that, and he brought in some with the steely edge. You like the likes of Alan Lee, Jamie McComb. I think you played the previous season with Andy Butler, Nathan Clarke, and Neil Trotman at the back, and then he's brought in Jamie McComb, who was about 6'7", something like that. Absolutely,
yeah,
huge.
he was a big lad.
Yeah. Kevin Kilban came in, Damien Johnson. I think Damien Johnson did his knee, didn't he? And Kilban replaced him, going from memory there, which might be wrong. I mean, the plan was probably to be more streetwise, I would imagine, for when your future Millwalls came up. But I remember going to the first game at Notts County, and we won 3-0, and there was Joey Good-Johnson in midfield, Scott Arfield, and Joe Garner up front. And I remember coming away from that thinking, we're going to win the league here. We were unbelievable that day. And Jordan Rhodes, Pilkington, and it was just, everything just seemed to click early. And it was like, oh, we're going to win the league. This is amazing. And that was still one of the best performances I think I've seen for a long time. I remember Joe Garner hitting the crossbar with that volley and thinking, we're going places with this team. And it was a lot of fun. And we'll sort of move on a little bit as well. But we were a little bit inconsistent as well. I think we'd lost 9 games before Christmas, and a few of them were like 1-0 at home, which was a bit uncharacteristic. And then something seemed to click as well in the new year, and it became very solid, to the point that Arsenal struggled to break us down when we went there in the FA Cup. And I think it was only a dodgy-looking penalty, wasn't it? It sort of got them the win, and Jack Hunt that day was absolutely electric. So we'll just sort of talk about that start of that season and the new players, and that Arsenal game was pretty special. And Alan Lee's header with the celebrating in the away was pretty good as well.
No, it was the first game of the season. You think, oh, here we go. But it's not. You realise, you're well aware that it's not going to be that easy. It's not going to go like that every week. And I think because of what we'd done the year previous, the season previous, players, teams coming to the Gal Farm were like, well, we need to, really be on our mettle, shut up shop, make sure that we're not too open, or they'll cut through us. Like you say, there were some defeats at home by a narrow margin where we dominate the game and they sucker punch us, which was again something we needed to learn from. I think through the course of the second part of the season, we probably did that. But obviously, you go to the Emirates and you're well in the game, and then a certain individual falls over and the referee gives it. Never been a penalty in a million years, but we came away having acquitted ourselves very, very well. Against one of the top sides in the country.
It was Fabregas who scored the penalty. I remember they had to throw on their best players, didn't they, to try and get back into the game, and it was still pretty even. It was an unbelievable performance that day. And the second half of this season is where things really sort of pick up, and like you said, that Town learn from things. And then the second half of the season, we go 26 league games unbeaten, which is phenomenal. 15 wins and 11 draws, and good managers always say if you can't win, don't lose, don't they? And I think some fans were a little bit harsh at times when there were kind of indications going, they want to preserve the record rather than try and win games. But I never really got that. I didn't think it was ever the case. But that unbeaten run was phenomenal. But we just, like I said earlier, we just fell short of the autos. But the teams there, we had Gus Poyet's Brighton were unbelievable, and then Southampton with Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Ricky Lambert. What a team they had, and to go sort of toe to toe with them until the last game of the season, whereby I think we drew 4-4 with Brentford, which Southampton won, and if Southampton won, they'd have won on goal difference by a bit anyway. So
I think Brighton were already up, and Plymouth. Southampton played Plymouth on the midweek before we played Brentford, so it was done than a massive turnaround on the goal difference. And like you say, we drew 4 apiece with Brentford, which was a bit of an anomaly in terms of results. But no, I mean, going into games, we never went into a game thinking, oh, we can't, we can't lose. We've got to maintain the run. It was a case of giving everything we could to win every game, and sometimes, it's not possible. But like you say, if you can't win, don't lose.
Absolutely. So we just miss out again, and we go into the playoffs, and it's Bournemouth this time, and this was an unbelievable roller coaster killer, wasn't it? Over the 2 legs. There's an early kickoff for TV in the first leg down at Bournemouth. I remember having to get a coach at like 3 a.m. to go down to Bournemouth. It's like, yeah, thanks, Sky. And then there was like a Swindon versus Charlton was at 5:30 in the afternoon, and you sort of like, well, they move that the other way around. So we went down really early. Kevin Kilbam puts us 1-0 up from a set piece with a header, doesn't he? And it's Donald McDermott scores for them, who later signs for us. And he scores in the second half. And we go back to Huddersfield 4 days later, and it's such a crazy game. Lee Peltier puts us 1 up. Is it Stuart Lovell, the striker? He equalises with a pen. Danny Ward puts us 2-1 up. Lovell equalises again, and we go into extra time, and then Danny Ings puts Bournemouth 4-3 up for the first time in the entire leg, or entire match, 2 games, and they're up 4-3 on aggregate, and you're thinking, oh no, and it's just like the ultimate sucker punch, if you like, because Town have been pretty much winning from the start, and then just as you're worried, Anthony Kay just rockets in this unbelievable header, doesn't it? It's an absolute. Probably one of the hardest headers you'll see. Yeah, it's an unbelievable. And he runs off doing his wrestling thing. Killer loves it.
Yeah,
John Cena.
You can't see me.
Yeah, exactly. Run off doing his "You can't see me" John Cena thing, which was quite fitting at the time. But unbelievable. And then the penalties as well afterwards. And I think what it showed. This is going to sound silly in a way, but I always thought going 4-3 down was perfect for us for the penalties, because you had to sort of dig in and show character and rise above, the adversity, if you like, and we came back, and then penalties is it kind of sets you up for the penalties, because you've come back and you're not and you're on the up rather than on the down, and I think the penalties we took that day were unbelievable, weren't they? They were all
there's some really good pens, like you say, when you go 4-3 down, you're thinking, oh God, are we going to get back in it? But then when you get back in it and it does go to pens, like you say, that mindset of ours and theirs is one of those where you're thinking, yeah, we're on the up, we're moving forward. They're thinking, we could have had it won. So yeah, and there was some really good pens. And Casey, I'll see him on Saturday. We're playing in a charity game. His penalty was brilliant.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you were like holding your breath as he hits it, and it's the underside of the bar, then comes down, and then when it into the roof of the net, you go, oh yes, thank God. So it was good.
Do you remember who was down for the because that was that the 4th penalty? Who was down for the? Do you remember who was down for the 5th?
The 4th, me.
Yeah, you were down for the 5th. There you go. We'll talk about your penalty in a little bit as well. That's one of the more defining moments. But there's 2 last things on this. We'll talk about the Peterborough game, which was just a really weird day, wasn't it, Killer? The whole sort of vibe around it was strange. As a fan, going in, it all seemed a little bit, I don't know, subdued. It was really a really strange atmosphere, and the game itself was it was again one of those tense playoff matches, if you like, where Town had. I think the big controversy for Town fans was dropping Jordan Rhodes for it, wasn't it? But I think when you look back, Town had just set a record for a winning away games, 6 away games in a row wins, which was a club record with a system with Benica Phobie up front. And we played Peterborough at home a little bit earlier that season. I think it was in April, and they'd really sort of outplayed us in a lot in the midfield area. And we struggled. We drew 2-2, but we struggled to get to grips with them, didn't we? But so to me, it seemed a sensible thing to do was to sort of alter in midfield and go that way. But it just ended up being a bit a bit tight, and it was one of those where whoever blinks first is going to sort of win. And I think Jack Hunt had their left back on toast, Grant Basie, that was his name. And then Darren Ferguson took him off and put Charlie Lee on, and that sort of showed things up. And it was very tight. And they scored at the end in the 78th minute, which it was from a free kick. And I'll sit here till my dying day, Peter, and tell you that was offside. When the ball goes forward, Craig Michael-Smith's about 5 yards offside, and then he wins the free kick, doesn't he? And then it all goes.
So if you got VAR now, that doesn't happen, or you'll have it then. Like you say, Craig Michael-Smith was offside, and well, don't start me. Yeah, the first goal is always massive in the playoff games, playoff fans at least anyway. You know, and then they get themselves in front. There's not long left, and we go to chase the game, get sucker punched again. So yeah, it was not a good end to the season.
No,
did the players understand, Peter? Did the players understand why Jordan Rose wasn't picked for that? Because the fans, the only thing similar to that going into it that I can remember, Matt, was the Forest game in the playoff final for the championship. The atmosphere between Town fans just fell off for that game as well. But with the Peterborough one, it was the Jordan Rose thing, I think, that made the atmosphere a bit sour for Town fans before. And like you say, Afobe done so well in the games, but still, when you've got your main striker scoring, 30, 40 goals a season and not starting him, I think it was a bit of a shock to Town fans. And not only that, the game itself was quite... It didn't really work. The system for Town, I thought we were okay. I didn't think we dominated the game. Like you say, Matt, we struggled in the midfield in the game at home earlier in the season, but I think fans were expecting Rhodes to be coming on a little bit earlier. Were there anything with the players like that, or did you guys understand what the game plan was? It just felt, to me, that game was Clarke struggling to change anything. It was like a bit of a paralysis that he didn't want to change too much. And as the game went on, it just felt like Peterborough grew into it a little bit more than we did until we changed things a little bit too late.
I think, obviously, we understood what was happening as players. You know, Jordan scored goals, but he hadn't played away from home much. You know, certainly through the last 10, 12 games. Benniker was unplayable at Brighton away, where we won 3-2. I think he scored 2 goals. So, yeah, we knew the reason for it. We knew the reason why. And so people talk about the time and the substitutions and things like that, but with 12 minutes to play, the game's still nip and tuck. You know, for me, yes, you would like to win, and making positive changes can aid that. But if you kind of show your hand too early, you might open yourselves up and end up ultimately not winning. I know the end result, we lost. But as you say, Matt, the build up to the free kick, he was offside. If they don't get that decision, the game probably ends after 90 minutes 0-0. And then you go into the extra time where you then you'll probably make one change at the break. You'll probably then make another change in the first period of extra time and a third one if you need to in the second part of extra time. So I'm well aware that there was criticism aimed at Lee after that. But the finest of margins. And like I say, if they flag for offside, Craig Michael-Smith is given offside, my thinking is that game ends 0-0. And then you're in a position where you're not chasing the game. You can make positive changes. And I think we had a stronger bench than they did, which would have impacted more than theirs would have. But ultimately, it's hypothetical because that offside was not given. They score from that, and then we ultimately end up chasing the game.
Yeah, as they say, hindsight's 20/20 as well, don't they?
Oh, yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Something that you did after that game really endeared you to Town fans even more. I think as fans in that situation, you're distraught in a lot of ways. You're upset. You're either upset or you're angry. I mean, we won't talk about the what was happening at the in the other side of the stadium with some of the fans fighting and what have you. But I think afterwards, your reaction afterwards, where you're visibly upset on the field, it's very different to sort of 20 years ago where people would react differently to that. That endeared you more to Huddersfield Town fans because everyone's looking at you going, we love Peter Clarke because Peter Clarke cares. Look at him. He's one of us, that sort of thing. And I think when people see that, they know that the football team's in good hands because they know players care. And we've seen at Huddersfield before where you've been skeptical as to whether players care. Before we start recording, we mentioned the end of this season, and you're always skeptical at times whether players are just going through the motions and stuff. But there was none of that really with that team and yourself. And I think when you see that, you know that, do you know what? They've lost, but they're going to come back next year and they're going to give it another go again.
Yeah. So the build up to the playoff final, we'd won, we'd beaten Bournemouth, had a couple of days off, then we were back in training. And through the course of that season, my wife was pregnant with our second child, my son. The waters broke at 24 weeks. And we were in and out of hospital every 2-3 days. And ultimately he was born prematurely. And he was born 6 days before the playoff final. So Lee was brilliant with me. I trained intermittently. I was there for my missus and our now eldest. And from my point of view, the game being at Old Trafford was,
as a little
Wembley's brilliant, but the location of where the final was that year probably was ideal because the morning of that game, we get up, sort my daughter her breakfast, my mother and father-in-law come, pick her up, then get in the car and go to the hospital, see my wife, my son. At this point, he's still in an incubator. So there were trials and tribulations leading up to the day. But job to do, know exactly what's happening, and get to the hotel, have pre-match, ready. And this isn't in any way disrespectful to Peterborough or arrogant, but I never for 1 second contemplated losing. I was like, we're going to win. It didn't even enter my thought process. We weren't losing. We couldn't lose. So then ultimately the score is what it is. The game ends. And it was like getting hit with a wrecking ball. Just everything came out. The family situation, the fact that we lost, and I'm thinking like, wow, this is what it feels like. This is not what I expected. And I know some of the lads at the end of the game, they disappeared down the tunnel. The supporters then disappeared down the tunnel. I didn't. Yeah, I was devastated. We'd lost. We'd not got promoted. But I stayed and I don't know, watched them, Luffy, celebrate, and eventually traipsed off the pitch and thought to myself, I never want to feel like this again. And I suppose in a perverse kind of way, it was then motivation that we went one better, that I didn't feel like that again the following year. So yeah, I mean, there was certain things going on in my personal life, but I never for 1 second ever contemplated not winning that game, was not being promoted, was not being on that podium with the trophy and celebrating. So yeah, it all came pouring out, and well, that's me. I wear my heart on my sleeve. People have generally got a fair idea of how I feel and what I think. And yeah, not winning, horrible. I think we had about 3.5 weeks off. It was the worst 3 weeks ever.
It's 14 years on, Peter, and I still can't listen to Katy Perry's Firework if it comes on the radio or anything. I still have to turn it off because that was the song that was on while they were lifting the trophy.
Was it?
It's coming off.
I have no idea.
No, when it comes on now, it still brings back PTSD from that. I still have to turn it off. It's one of the, it's ruined. Is that song? Not that it's a great song anyway, but it's one of those that got ruined for me. I'm not a Katy Perry fan. One thing that happened that season I forgot to mention was the Anthony Pilkington's ankle break, which happened right in front of. I was sat in the Kill the Bank that Saturday. It was right in front of me, and that was just a horrible moment. Against Rochdale, it was an accident, a complete accident with the guy, and it just seemed a really sort of shocking thing. And that was obviously Anthony's last kick for Huddersfield Town, wasn't it? But things like that can derail a season. But Town managed to bring in Danny Ward to replace him. But at that point, there was a lot of concern for Anthony Pilkington in that moment.
Yeah. Obviously, he went to block the cross and his foot was up and loose, I suppose. And as it hit his foot, turned his foot and his ankle, and then down it went into the turf, and all his weight went through it and ultimately dislocated, broke his ankle. And I remember Jack was probably the closest player to it. And, I think if he wasn't sick, he was nearly sick. And he couldn't look at it. And I was like, I'm probably 10, 15 yards away. Didn't realise the severity of it at that immediate moment. But when I did, I've then gone across and looked and thinking, no, that's not facing where it should be. And I just sat down with him, held his hand, and he grabbed my neck, my shoulder. My God, I couldn't ask him to let go because he was obviously in a world of trouble. But I've never known anyone grip so tightly. My neck was killing me for about a week after it. And fortunately he got to the hospital, they realigned it and everything in the time frames that were required. Because, there was probably a point in time where things were touch and go as to how things could end up. But fortunately, it worked out okay, and Anthony was then able to go on, rehabilitate, and go on and have a really good career.
Did, yeah, straight to the Premier League, and I don't think anyone would ever begrudge him of that because he was a fantastic player. You won the Player of the Year again, second time in a row, and became the second ever Huddersfield player to win back-to-back Player of the Season awards, which is a great achievement when at that time only two players had done that in the history of Huddersfield Town. Not Andy Booth, not Marcus Stewart. It was Tom Cowan was the first one in the 90s. That's a brilliant achievement, isn't it? To be one of only two, now three. Christopher Schindler has done it, but one of only three players to win, and Michael Hellick, sorry. It's all centre back, all defenders, isn't it? But so the second of four players in Huddersfield Town history to win back-to-back Player of the Season awards, which is a phenomenal achievement.
Yeah, nice again. Nice to win a personal accolade, but again, I would readily have handed that trophy back if it meant I was lifting the one at Old Trafford. So yeah, no, I mean, lovely to win the personal accolades, but hopefully it meant I was doing something right on the pitch. But you can't do it without your teammates as well. I was lucky to be surrounded by some really, really good players. And, they allowed me to do what I do. And then hopefully I was able to help them do what they did as well.
Let's move on to 2011-12. So this is the season it finally happens. It's the Jordan Rhodes season, basically, isn't it? With the amount of goals he scored, he was unbelievable. Lee Peltier and Anthony Pilkington moved on at that point, and Town signed Callum Woods, Oscar Goburn, Danny Ward permanently, Anton Robinson and Donald McDermott came in from Bournemouth, and Tommy Miller came in as well, and as did Damian Johnson. So Lee Clarke going for a bit of experience in midfield there with Miller and Johnson. We start this season brilliantly, again unbeaten in 18 league games, and there's always an argument, isn't there, about Huddersfield Town's unbeaten run. It's 43 games, which is a football league record, which is something that everyone must be incredibly proud of. And I don't think it deserves an asterisk because of the Peterborough game next to it either, because it's a football league based on league games. And when people talk about Arsenal's invincibles, they don't talk about how they lost in the Champions League or anything else, do they?
No, exactly.
So for me, it's a brilliant achievement, and it ended at Charlton, who ended up being the champions that season. And John Parkin always blames himself, doesn't he, on under the cosh for coming into Huddersfield and ruining that unbeaten run, which is quite funny. But, I mean, that was unbelievable, wasn't it? To go 43 games unbeaten must be it is obviously a football league record, and that's going to take some beating, isn't it? It's a brilliant achievement.
Yeah, I think it will take some beating. I think it showed the character, the togetherness within the group, the resilience. There was a group that could dig deep and prove their worth when the going got tough. So it is. It's nice to be part of a group that holds that record in the EFL. And again, I'm sure I speak not only for myself but the other lads within that group, and we probably be quite happy to have foregone that had it meant we got promoted prior to it, shall we say.
There's a game just after the unbeaten run ends at Sheffield Wednesday, which is probably one of the most incredible games of that season. And there's a huge following from Huddersfield goals. Both tiers are full. Town go 2-0 up in that game. Jordan Rhodes gets both. And Sheffield Wednesday were, I think it might have been Gary Megson, might have been manager at the time, but they were very direct. And they used to have Rob Jones, at the back, who was about 7 foot tall. He was huge. And they came back and they were 4-2 up going into injury time. And Jordan Rhodes pulls another one back. And then I think it's yourself. I think you must have moved into midfield or something at this point, and you kind of slide the ball through for Jordan Rhodes, and he finishes with the outside of his foot. That's an unbelievable game. That to sort of have it, throw it away, and bring it back was just a brilliant. That's what you pay your money to go watch, isn't it? Basically.
It is, yeah. And I mean, like I just mentioned there about resilience, going ahead, then ending up 2 goals behind at Hillsborough. I'm not sure there'd be many teams would have come back and taken a point out of the game at that point in time. So, again, another sign of the character and the togetherness of the group.
I think Jordan's dad was the goalkeeper coach at Sheffield Wednesday at the time as well, so I think he must have felt a little bit conflicted. Yeah, Town got another 9 games unbeaten then, before 2 draws, and then a defeat at home to Sheffield United, which wasn't the greatest game, but Lee Clarke lost his job on the back of it, and I think the whole sort of football world kind of had daggers for Huddersfield Town, didn't they, at the time? Because he's just there's this 43 game unbeaten run. He loses to Charlton, goes on another unbeaten run, and loses one more. He's effectively lost 2 league games in a year or something like that, and Town sack him. And I don't think that was understood very well outside of Huddersfield. I think in Huddersfield, I think that in terms of the fans, I think they kind of got it. It kind of just felt like things were getting a lot more tense, if you like, just from watching. The freedom maybe wasn't there, but it must have been a really strange time for the players, for the manager to go when he's not really lost any games.
Yeah, I mean, we were third at the time, and you're looking and you're thinking like, wow, the run we've been on, the position we are in the league, there's not a lot going wrong. And you're aware that at times, there probably was a tenseness around the club, around the team. We were there to be shot at from opposition teams. And, certainly as a group, we felt massively for Lee. I think the vast majority of the players within the squad have been signed by him. To see him relieved of his duties so close to the end of the season, we were, I think there was also a cautiousness of what may come to pass moving forward. The timing perhaps not ideal, and like I say, we all felt for Lee, and we wondered, how things were then going to move forward.
And the way forward, Dean moved very quickly, didn't he, to replace Lee Clarke? I think they went for Neil Warnock first, but he went to Leeds, and they went and got Simon Grayson, who just left Leeds, and someone that you knew very well, I think you played with him at Blackpool, and then he took over as Blackpool manager when you were there, didn't he?
Yeah.
Had a good record, good promotion record, and so you could see why Dean would choose that. So Simon Grayson's got a couple of promotions from that division, and it made a lot of sense. Town kind of got worse before they got better, if you know what I mean. There was like a spell where they lost 3 or 4 games on the spin, but I suppose that comes with him sort of altering and tinkering things away from what Lee Clarke was doing, and there's a little adjustment period, if you like. But we move into sort of the playoffs again, and Town win. I think we beat Yeovil, don't we, to just go above MK Dons to get the home game second. And it seems to really rattle Carl Robinson for some reason that we've sort of pipped them to that. And it's at that point you see him sort of moaning in the press that they've not got the home game second, and you kind of think, we've got you here, because he's sort of like, he's kind of lost it a little bit. And
he almost showed his cards too early.
It was really strange. And then we go down there, and it's a brilliant performance, isn't it, to win 2-0 at MK Dons with Jordan Rhodes scoring again, and Jack Hunt at this point is electric, isn't he, from right back, and it's just a phenomenal performance and a really professional one as well.
Yeah, we went down there and like you say, 2-0, which is great, but knew there was still a job to be done coming back in the second leg. We'd set ourselves up relatively well, which was great, but knew that there's still a lot of work to be done.
And it starts well in the second leg. Jordan Rhodes puts us 3-0 up, and I think this is where Ian Bennett gets injured, doesn't he? And Alex Smithies comes into goal as well. And then is it Daniel Powell scores for MK to make it 1-1. And to be honest, the game kind of peters out. I think Town have literally got MK at arm's length, so to speak. There's not a lot happens, and then Alan Smith sort of scores from a corner right at the very end, doesn't he? And it kind of probably makes the aggregate score closer than what it was. 3-2. But I think Town were always winning that game, weren't they? Always looked comfortable.
Very weird. We were always comfortable. All right, they got another in it, perhaps put bums on the edge of seats for the last few minutes, but it always felt comfortable. It felt like we had them at arm's length. And ultimately we didn't win the game on the evening, but we won the tie and made it through.
I mean, going down to Wembley, it's the third playoffs, third time lucky, so to speak, and it's a heat wave. That day was absolutely roasted. It was horrible to sort of sit and watch. It was there was traffic going down. I think coming off at Milton Keynes, there was a lot of Town fans couldn't get to the game and ended up going off to different pubs up and down the country where they got stuck. Our coach thankfully made it through, and we got there 5 minutes before kickoff, and it was unbelievably hot. And the game was it's another one of those tense, attritional ones where nobody wants to make a mistake. And it's I suppose you go back to the Peterborough one the year before. There's no bad decision this time, so it does go 0-0 against Sheffield United. And then I think the closest we come is I think you almost got on the end of a set piece, don't you? And it just kind of flashes across goal.
Yeah, no, I had it down, and the lad. Well, there was a couple. I had one saved by Steve Simonson low down, and then there was another one that went past him and was hooked off the line. There was a little part of you thinking, like I mentioned the year before, I never contemplated losing. This time, I'm thinking it's not going to go the same way, is it? Fortunately enough, we then, we get through. We get to the penalties, and after our first three,
it looked forlorn.
We got to contemplate losing.
It looked forlorn, especially when it's three experienced players as well. Tommy Miller's penalty is not bad. It's a really good save. Damien Johnson, Alan Lee's probably not great.
Yeah, but I think Tommy had never missed a penalty before that.
Yeah,
I remember he used to something like 30 from 30.
He scored loads for Ipswich, didn't he? He was like a set piece king for Ipswich. And what are you thinking then? You're coming up fourth. Were you scheduled to go fourth, or did you sort of think, right, I need to step up here and do the captain's thing?
I was down for the fourth one. I think like you say, there was Tommy who scored pens here, there, and everywhere. Then did Damien Johnson go second?
Damien Johnson, he puts it wide, but he's again a brilliant, experienced player.
Yeah, so we'd gone with experience. We practiced them the day before. We practiced them through the course of the week leading up to it. Alan Lee stepped up, and you're thinking, big man will be all right, and he didn't hit it as cleanly as he would have liked. And I'm thinking to myself, like, well, if I don't score here, we're as good as dead. They only need to score one of their last two penalties, and they've won. So I'm realising that I perhaps need to score here. And I knew where I was going, knew what I was doing, and put the ball down, knew where I was going, what I was going to do, concentrated on it cleanly, and lovely to see it ripple the inside of the side netting and then spin right round the goal. And it was one of those where, there's certainly an element of relief, but also, right.
Come on, I've got a brilliant picture for you, Peter. Look, this is the picture of it there with you sort of just you turning around and you're screaming. I'm sat behind the goal there, and you're screaming at that, and the whole mood changes like this because the captain's like, "Come on, we're gonna do this." And I think special word for Alex Smithies, because the save he makes from their first penalty, I think it's from Williamson, is unbelievable. Right down in the bottom corner, it's an unreal save, is that? And he's doing really well to keep us in it. He makes another save, and then you score. And then Town don't miss from that point. Scott Arfield, Jordan Rhodes, Gary Roberts, Callum Woods, Jack Hunt, going from memory. And it gets right up to Sean Morrison. And then it's the keepers. And you must be thinking, this is never going to end this. And Alex Smithies, I remember him saying he took it like a goal kick. He ran up to it like a goal kick and everything. And he scores. And then Steve Simonson's ball comes up towards us. And the relief is just is unbelievable.
After taking my penalty, and I ultimately went and played with this lad after it, I was walking back, and the lad had just come on, Andy Taylor, to take the penalty. And he's walking up, and I just made a beeline for him. I just walked straight towards him, so he was going to have to walk around me. Was it very sporting? I'm not sure it will be looked upon that way, but I'm a bad loser. I wanted to give any possible edge that we could. So he had to walk around me. Like you say, then Smithies with the penalty. We'd been taking them the day before. And he was like, shall I take one? I said, take a few. And he was like, oh, what shall I do? I said, you kick the ball a million miles from a goal kick. Just go and lace it. Spank it as hard as you can. Put your head down. Make sure your head's down. and he did, and he hit 3 the day before, all where he hit the one on the Saturday afternoon. I had no doubt that he was going to score when he stepped up, and then ultimately Steve Simonson took it.
He didn't look right, did he, Steve Simonson, when he stood up?
Well, there was an air of confidence about Alex when he stepped up to take his. I'm going to surmise that Simo had never practiced a penalty, and it was a shock that it come to that stage. I might be wrong, but if he hadn't practiced, I'm quite pleased about that looking back.
I mean, the celebrations were unbelievable. There's Dean. I remember Simon Grayson saying that he turns around to sort of celebrate with Dean Hoyle, and Dean Hoyle's halfway down the pitch, doing a lap around the pitch and everything, and he's delighted. We're all going mad in the heat, in the away end, if you like. And I just remember the scenes, especially yourself in particular, when you go up and you pick up the trophy. I just remember you leaning over the balcony at the end and just sort of like taking it all in with a big smile on your face. And it was so good to see the difference from the year before and the relief and the happiness of everyone around. It was just a brilliant moment where you kind of just sort of like lean over, don't you? And you just kind of go, this is better.
Yeah.
This is better. And it's a great moment. Is that? Do you remember doing that? And
yeah, I mean, like looking back at myself and Gary Roberts had done an interview on the pitch at the time, and they mentioned the year before, and I said, yeah, there's tears again, but these are of a different sort. And yeah, I got up on the gantry, walking up, and there was a disgruntled supporter as we're walking up the steps who decided to spit his drink all over me, which didn't go down too well. Fortunately, the security got to him before I did. But yeah, we got up there and we were on the balcony, and as lads are getting their medals, I was first up, so I got my medal, and I'm looking, and I suppose looking back, you're thinking, well, this might be as good as it gets in a football career. So I wanted to take in every second of it. When I was a kid, it was always the FA Cup final. When you're in the the backyard, or you're on the school playground, or on the field with your mates or whatever. It was always the FA Cup final. So playing in a Wembley final was, the dream of a 7-8-year-old kid, I suppose.
And you managed to live that, which was great. And winning is even better. Did you all celebrate after? How did you all celebrate that afterwards? Did you go out around London? Did you? I remember. I think there's some pictures back in Huddersfield. I remember Sean Morrison in particular being quite a character in some of those pics. That it wasn't. I don't think social media was quite as what it was then as what it is now. So there's just like one or two pictures floating around of Sean Morrison with pen on his face and things like that. But what can you remember what you did that night to do it?
Yeah, the year before, we at Old Trafford, there was a do back at the stadium after that. That was purgatory. Having got beaten, you were like, don't want to be here without being rude. So there was nothing set up. So obviously the fluids went into the changing rooms after the game. They weren't Lucozade or water or anything like that, but a load of fluids. So we enjoyed a drink or two there. Then went and saw families who were in the bar upstairs. And then ultimately we got on the coach, heading back to Huddersfield. We stopped at an off licence along the way. I think, as we believe in, they realised they'd done enough business that they could close up for the rest of the night. So there was plenty of, plenty of fluids on the coach on the journey back. And then we went back to see the court at Ainley Top there. And there was some food and drink and stuff put on there. Some of the lads went into town, other lads who stayed at the hotel. So I just stayed at the hotel and ultimately never went to bed.
Brilliant season, and we're going up to the Championship. So Huddersfield Town are playing in the Championship for the first time, and I think it was 11 seasons. So it was the longest we'd actually been out of the second tier in the club's history, and so you guys played a huge part in taking us back there. And you'd been playing in League One next to Sean Morrison at the end. You played alongside Nathan Clarke, Andy Butler, Neil Trotman, Jamie McComb, Anthony Kay. Would you say that maybe Sean Morrison was the best one of the bunch? I mean, they all had different characteristics and traits and everything, didn't they? But who was your? I don't know if you'll answer this, but I was gonna say who was the favourite one of the bunch. But I imagine they all had different bits that would complement you.
Of course, there were different qualities with each and every one of them. Get on well with Casey. We had a good understanding. We were quite similar. But yeah, looking back, Big Sean was probably the best one that I played with. Good player, and went on and again had a great career.
Yeah, absolutely class. So season 12-13, and you end up with new partners at the back in Joel Lynch and Anthony Gerrard. And as fans, we only get this little window to look through, if you like, into or peek behind the curtain, so to speak. But they seemed like different characters. I imagine Anthony Gerrard is very different to a lot of people at the ground, and I imagine there's probably some stories about him. I think the last time we saw Anthony Gerrard, he was on Under the Cosh with his eyebrows shaved. So I mean, he looked like he was a character. Did Anthony?
Yeah. Anthony doesn't live too far from me, so I still see him occasionally here and there, and we've got kids of a similar age. But yeah, no, he was good player, good lad, character, someone who demanded of his teammates as well. And he was, was he there 2 or 3 years? He was someone who wanted to be the best that he could be every time he played. Lynchy, a little bit different, a bit quieter, a bit more laid back. But someone who's had a good career, a good player, and had a lovely left foot as well.
He scored a couple of goals of the season, didn't he? When he was there, there's like an overhead kick, and there was that one from Charlton against Charlton where he smashes it from like 40 yards, which is unreal. Jordan Rhodes leaves for Blackburn at this point, £8 million. Just how good was Jordan Rhodes he scored a lot of goals for Huddersfield Town. He came back and scored a few more, and he just seems such a nice person, a nice human being. He's just Jordan, so quiet and unassuming. He must have been brilliant to play with.
Oh, he is. Lovely person. Great character. Yeah, and he was an out-and-out goal scorer. Sometimes Jordan could frustrate you a little bit with his play outside of the box. But over the course of time, he became better at playing with his back to goal. But you put the ball in the box, there's not many better. And one of those where you look back and I'm glad I played on his side for as long as I did. Not someone I would have liked to have played against too much. I did play against him, obviously, at various points in time, but I'm certainly glad I was playing with him more than I was against him.
He wasn't fast, he wasn't strong, but his timing was just unbelievable, wasn't it? His knowing of when and where to make runs. It's just one of those things you just can't teach, isn't it, Killy? Jordan Rhodes' movement in and around the box, it's just next level, really. And Town replaced him with James Vaughan and Jermaine Beckford, and two very, very good strikers themselves as well. Jermaine Beckford, in terms of finishing, probably up there with Jordan and anyone else that Huddersfield Town have had. And James Vaughan was all action, impact, powerful. And Beckford unfortunately gets injured. But there's a start of that season where I think we win at Blackpool on Sky. I think you score. I think Lee Novak scores.
Yeah, I played
James
Leeds
Vaughan.
too. Yeah.
That was and Ollie Norwood scores, doesn't he, with the free kick? I think, and we win 3-1. I think at that point we're in the top 6. Do you sort of think at that point? Do you think it's happening again? Is this we can go through at that point, or was it? Or were you a bit more realistic than maybe I was?
No, you do. You think there is a level of optimism, and you're thinking, oh yeah, we've a chance. But the long seasons, and you've got to maintain that for long periods of time. Unfortunately, it fell away and wasn't quite to be.
Yeah, I mean, we went on a bad run and didn't win in 12 games, and Simon Grayson pays with his job, unfortunately. Again, do you just look at that and think it's football? Because he's obviously got us promoted, and then I think Dean, to be fair to Dean, I think he had a really good sense of when and when not to press the button on a lot of things. I think his timing was almost as good as Jordan Rhodes's, if you like, with a lot of things. But he, I think at the time, Simon Grayson probably didn't get the same sort of outpouring Lee Clarke did, despite getting Town promoted. But I think, to be fair to him, he did the job, and he did a good job in getting Town up and sort of settled in the next
I think
division as well.
Obviously he did the job that was required. He was brought in to get the lads promoted, which he did. And I think probably because of the run that we'd been on and the league position that we were in, that was probably why there was probably less fuss made of Simon leaving than there was Lee. But, both in different ways have done brilliant jobs for the club and helped progress it and move it forward.
Absolutely. And then Mark Robbins comes in, and to be honest, Mark Robbins, he came into a bit of a hiding in some ways. I think we lost 4-1 or 4-0 to Wigan on TV in the FA Cup. I think that might have been his first one. And to be fair, Wigan were a Premier League team with international superstars at that point, so it's not like losing to Wigan today, if you like. And then we lost 6-1 at Nottingham Forest. And I remember going down to Nottingham Forest. We got stuck in traffic on the way down and queuing up to get in. And we hear this roar, and we're thinking, oh, Forest have scored already. And we get into the ground, and James Vaughan had scored for us. And so me and my mate had missed that. And then we were sat there for them scoring 6 in front of us, which just one of those away games where you just think, oh, it's just one of those days. But to get from that situation of where Town are struggling, and I think we lost 6-1 at Leicester as well, where Chris Wood was unplayable that day. So to get from that to then go on a run of form which was top 6 standard, and the run that went under Mark Robbins was brilliant, and winning away at Bristol City and a load of other great results there. And it leads up to that game against Barnsley, which is the most bizarre game in a lot of ways that you'll see. But firstly, how did Mark Robbins turn that round? And then we'll talk about the Barnsley game and how they went 1-0 up. We pull it back. They go 2-1 up. And at that moment, Huddersfield Town are in the bottom 3. I don't know if you were aware of it on the field, but for a couple of minutes, Town were in the bottom 3. And then James Vaughan scores. I can't remember if it was Vaughan or Beckford, but both of them scoring. I think they both score. And then the result, the Peterborough news filters through. How does that filter through onto? I've asked you a lot of questions there, but how does that filter through onto the pitch and alter your way of thinking?
So we went in at half time, and there was a disagreement. Like someone had mentioned that we were in the bottom 3 at that point. We were down, and some words and pushing and shoving and one thing and another. We get out, we get level, we go behind again. And then, like you say, Jermaine Beckford goes through and he's ice cool in front of goal, sits the keeper down and thinks it over him. I think he'd done it at Wolves away, running sits the keeper down, dinks it, and it goes, and then goes and celebrates in front of you guys. So you know at that point that we're safe. We've got the point that we require, but they're not. And you get into a stage where time's ticking away for them, and the keeper's spanking it as far as you can. The centre halves are up, and they're looking for, any possible bits and pieces that they can get knockdowns or any scraps. A couple come and you're heading them away. Jez is heading them away next to me, and we're thinking, this is going to be a long 10 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, depending on what they add on. And then the ball ends up back with their goalkeeper and their staff. And I can't think who the assistant was at the time, but the manager was Dave Flitcroft. And he jumps down off the step of their dugout and comes to the pitch edge, and he's like waving his arms, and it's like, well, it becomes apparent that Peterborough are behind. Peterborough have then subsequently lost, and we're both up. So then their goalkeeper, I think it was Luke Steele, he's put the ball down. He's basically walking around his area for the remaining 2, 3, 4 minutes. And I remember looking across, and Jack Hunt sat down like cool as a cucumber, calm, and I was thinking to myself, like, you're not quite sure whether it's finished at Selhurst Park or they're still playing but they're behind. So I suppose they were a calmer few minutes at the end of that game than they could be had the result at Palace been different.
Yeah, just a word for Matt Robbins then. What did he do to sort of turn the corner for us? Because, like I say, results weren't going great, and then all of a sudden it kind of like slowly turned round, and then the form towards the end of that season was phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything that you would really pinpoint and say was massively significant, but at the time as well, Jermaine Bex had come back from an injury. We got 1 or 2 other lads that had been in and out and injured. And I think we just had a more settled team that all kind of knew what they were doing and where they needed to be and what was required. And that ultimately helped us, get over the line, shall we say.
Yeah. And brilliant. We've literally had like 4 years in a row where it's been quite breathless, if you like, as fans. The end of the season, we've got the autos to the playoffs, and then to staying up on the last day, and then your last season at Town, the 2013-14 season, is a bit more comfortable, if you like. We finished 17th, and I don't think we're ever really in that much danger. Matt Robbins, he kind of brought in a slow-paced possession style, didn't he? I think at that point it was tasked with developing a philosophy, and I don't think the Town fans 100% bought into it. I quite liked it, to be fair, but I don't think Town fans kind of bought into it massively. But there were a few memorable games that season as well. I remember Adam Hamill tearing Bournemouth apart as we beat them 5-1. He was unbelievable that day. Beating Leeds 3-2, which was great. I remember John Stead was a massive favourite of Huddersfield fans, so for him to get the winner of that day, and the picture of him celebrating was brilliant. So there were some really good moments, and a 5-0 win over Barnsley. Sean Scannell doing quite well. There's a churn of players in this season as well. There's Danny Ward, Ollie Norwood, and Adam Clayton are all sold for money towards the end of that season as well. Is this the season where you got a knee injury? Am I right in thinking with Town?
Yeah, we played Birmingham on around bonfire night or something like that. Ball was played short to me, and I went into a tackle and ultimately snapped me medial ligament. And remember the physio James coming on and messing with my knee, and I'm like, all right, can't feel anything, I'm okay. And the defender Paul Robinson, that was at Birmingham at the time, that had been at West Brom, Watford, I think, he was like, Clarke, you can't play on with that. You'll end up knackering yourself completely. I was like, I can't feel it, it's okay. And then, like, I looked up and there was no stability in my knee, my leg or anything. And so, walked off the pitch, and I missed a fair portion of the season, probably about 4 months, which wasn't ideal. But I suppose it's a hazard of the job, and these things come to test you.
Do you think that might have played into the decision to not renew your contracts? I remember reading at the time, I think Mark Robbins had suggested he was going to offer you something, and then it got to the end of the season, and then he said there was nothing for you. I'm slightly paraphrasing that from memory, so I don't know if I'm 100% right.
Yeah,
But
so
how did that happen?
In the August, September, the club had mentioned about extending my stay. I was only too happy to sign a contract extension. Then it went a little bit quiet. I got injured in the November, and then we got through, and we were 3 days before the end of the January window closing. And then I was told if I could find a new club, I could leave. Which I was like, I'm not even fit. I'm not ready to be playing in Huddersfield's team, never mind anywhere else. No one's going to sign me. So ultimately I was like, too little notice. I'm not in a position to be going and showing my worth. And I, like you say, I stayed through then until the end of the season. Came back from the injury. But as I was aware of, there was going to be no contract extension come the end of that campaign.
If it's any consolation, I think every Huddersfield fan was gutted to see you leave. And to be honest, looking at the rest of your career, you could have got a 10-year contract because you're still going from there as well. You went back to Blackpool, and I think what's really, again, football, we talked earlier, didn't we, about how Southend ended up being your first game. You go to Blackpool, and within a couple of months, Lee Clarke turns up as Blackpool manager, doesn't he? I think the only sort of thing I remember from that Blackpool as well was I remember taking my now wife to that game. I said, we'll go to Blackpool, we'll go and get the train over, we'll do some bits and bats and go on the promenades, etc., and then get the train home and make a day of it. And I remember going there, and this is her first ever away game. She'd been to 1 or 2 home games, and they're in the wooden seats at the side at Blackpool. And it got to half time, and it was 0-0. And I remember the buzz with Huddersfield fans was, if we win, we can finish above Leeds for the first time in about 50 years or something. And then just after half time, the Blackpool fans all run on, don't they, in the protest of Owen Oyston. And obviously my missus is like, does this happen every week? What's going on? What's going on here? And then there's the guy on the mobility scooter comes round as well, and the Huddersfield fans are singing "There's only one Brian Potter" to him. How was that for you guys? I think as fans we kind of understand there's like a togetherness, or in some ways, that when clubs have owners that they deem as not being particularly good, I think we all sympathise with that at times as other fans. So we kind of got it. But as players who have that fans running on the pitch again, it must be a strange situation.
Yeah, that they're frustrated, they're annoyed with the ownership, and that's obviously their issue, the reason why. And as a football fan, like you say, you can understand that. But at the same time, as a player, you want to just crack on and do what you're there to do. Ultimately, the game never restarted, and I suppose ended 0-0 and sharing the spoils, and that was the end of that. But yeah, certainly a strange end to a season, shall we say?
Yeah, it took me about 2 years to get my other half to get to another away game after that as well. It was, but yeah, she jumped on the bandwagon when we got to the Premier League, shall we say? But the just going over your career from there on, because I don't think anyone could foresee that you're still playing at 43, which is unbelievable. You've had stints at Bury, Oldham, Fleetwood, Tranmere, Walsall. You're still playing for Warrington at the minute as well. Yeah. I believe you're in the top 10 all-time appearances in the Football League for most appearances in the football. I think you're on 987 senior appearances, which is incredible when you think about it. Are you playing on for 1,000? Is that the goal? Are you going to set yourself the target of 1,000 games?
There's only been about
you're probably going to play till you're 50 at this rate.
Say again.
You're probably going to play till 50 at this rate. You still look like you can go, to be fair.
Dear. You know what? First time I was on about 750 games when I was at Fleetwood. And the manager at the time, Joey Barton, Joe said to me, he said, "You play 1,000 games, or 250 to go at 37." I'm like, "You've got some faith in me there, lad," but kind of struck a chord with me. And probably about a month or so later, my best mate went, "I reckon you could get 1,000." So it was kind of proving those that were backing me right, and also, I suppose I left another club, a Northwest-based club that I'd been at for 3 years. On the Sunday night, I won the Player of the Year. On the Monday afternoon, they released me stating that I was too old. So, and that was before I went to Fleetwood. So I'll let you work that one out for yourselves. Yeah, no, the aim. Listen, I'm not close to make 1,000 competitive appearances. I've got to get there now. So yes, that is the aim. I'd like to dozen or so games, and I still feel okay. Still enjoy playing, competing. Still as sore a loser as ever. So no, yeah, be great to get to 1,000 and then take it from there, shall we say?
I think once you make that record, I think Town should 100% have you back as well for a celebration, because you've played pretty much 25% of that, or 22 point something percent at Huddersfield. So it would be great for you to come back, and we can all sort of like give you a big well done for that as well. Just one or two final questions as well. So from our Patreon guys, Billy_Town says, with such longevity, he'd really like to hear how you've changed your game, or if you have changed your game over the time, and what have you had to work hardest on or hardest to change to sort of go on for so long?
So I think I'm not going to say it's a skill, but an attribute that some footballers have is pace and being electric quick. For me, it's only an asset if that individual knows how to use it. I was never blessed with that pace. So in terms of me as a defender, I had to make sure my positioning was correct, because I didn't want to get in a foot race with 90% of players who were quicker than me. Might not be 90%, but I didn't want to get in a foot race with people. So the positioning had to be spot on, or as near as damn it as good as could possibly be. So looking back, actually not being electric quick probably was actually a blessing for me, and has helped with the longevity of things. Obviously, you learn more about your body and what's required as you get older and more experienced. So loads of little tweaks along the way, diet and things like that, recovery, etc., etc.
Ryan Giggs used to talk about yoga, didn't he, back in the early 2000s? So I remember he used to go on about that. Yeah. Phil Ross asks, what made you go into the PFA work instead of coaching and management? And is that still something that you consider at some point? I'll be honest, Peter, whenever coaching jobs come up at Huddersfield, if you look at social media or the forums, every Huddersfield Town fan goes, "Is Peter Clarke still playing? Couldn't he fill this role?" I think in their hearts, I think there's a coaching position for you at Huddersfield for a lot of fans. But what made you decide to go that way? And would you change maybe when you stop playing in a couple of years?
So I had the shoulder injury. Advised it would require surgery. This was at 41. Ultimately, didn't have the surgery. The more I did, the better it felt. But the rehab was going to be 5 months. And again, at that stage of proceedings with my birth certificate, most people would be looking down the nose and going, oof, no thanks, which is fine. So I needed to look at what came next really seriously. And I applied for all sorts of things, Amazon driving, whatever it might have been, because I needed to write CVs, cover letters, go through interview processes, because they were things that were likely to come in the not too distant future. Saw the role with the PFA, applied, and ultimately was offered it. And I really enjoy it, helping players, leaning on some of my experiences. But I enjoy helping people. And in terms of coaching, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, yes. I think the game's changed. And ultimately, the other thing as well for the coach and manager, the shelf life is quite short. And you also have to go where the work is. I've got a wife and family that are also looking, and I enjoy the stability of the job that I'm in. But I also enjoy being a dad and taking the kids to the extracurricular things that they're all into and doing at this point in time.
Yeah, I certainly know about that. I think the last thing then is just to sum up your time at Huddersfield, really, and any thoughts on the supporters. I know your mum and dad used to come and watch every game at Huddersfield, didn't they? I think they were your biggest supporters, weren't they? And it's incredible. And it's incredible though to have that support network, isn't it? As like you've just mentioned, like taking kids to all the different activities and things they do. Mine does all sorts, and they need that support network, don't they? The kids that you get from parents. And I always just think it was brilliant how they used to come and watch you at every game, whether it was away at Gillingham or all over. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. But so maybe just a final word on your time at Huddersfield and the supporters, including your mum and dad, obviously, who were Huddersfield supporters for 5 years. I guess.
Yeah, no, I was fortunate that they enjoyed coming and heckling me. But yeah, no, the fans at Town were terrific. I'd like to think that they took to me when I first came. I won't ever profess to being the best player that Huddersfield Town have ever had. But as a football fan, and coming from a working class area and working class upbringing, the skill of working hard, I think is one that's very much underestimated. And like I say, there's been far better players than me that have put the shirt on for Huddersfield Town. But I'll back myself to say that there probably won't have been too many who would have worked as hard as me or been as committed as myself. And I look back and I hope that those attributes were something that the supporters could associate with. And I'd like to feel that, with those attributes, I perhaps represented the supporters of the club and, was perhaps someone that they could associate with. And I'd like to think they supported me because of some of the attributes I've mentioned.
100%. I mean, whenever things always come up, don't they, on social media or forums, and they always say, what's your favourite Huddersfield Town 11 from the past 30 years? And you are consistently the one that's next to Christopher Schindler in Huddersfield's back four when people do their favourite things. So it gives me great delight in inducting you into our podcast, Cult Heroes Hall of Fame. Peter, you've been an unbelievable player for Huddersfield Town and one that we absolutely loved watching over 5 years. And I watched a video on YouTube just before, a compilation someone had put together, and the amount of blocks and throwing your face in front of things and all things. And those are the things that football supporters love, because they like to see themselves in what's on the field. And I think that's what they saw with you when you mentioned hard work. People from Huddersfield work hard, and they'd do anything to play for Huddersfield Town, including anything to keep the ball out of the net. And that's exactly what you did. So thank you for playing for Huddersfield and doing so in such a brilliant way.
My pleasure. Nice that people think of me like that. Wouldn't have minded playing with Christopher Schindler. He wasn't too bad at all. But no, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And hopefully the forthcoming season will be a more positive one for Town, and they can start moving in a forward and upward direction.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, they're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the Town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So Town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So Town, play up and bring the cup back to Huddersfield.